Hello to Sandra and my fellow classmates. My name is Erwin Dylan Geo Diamond and my matrix number is 012021090421. Okay, today I'll be presenting about my intro to hematology, basically the red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. Alright, so what is hematology? Hematology is basically the study and practice of treating diseases of the blood, including many things: sickle cell anemia, leukemia, lymphoma, and others. After that, the physiology, pathology, etiology, diagnosis, and treatment all falls under hematology. Alright. Next, the blood. The blood is basically the life force of the human body. It circulates throughout our body and supplies the cell with nutrients, oxygen, and all that. It also removes metabolic waste out of the cells, and then this blood actually cannot be substituted. It cannot be actually made from scratch. It either needs to be transfused from one human to another human, or it needs to be donated from a certain source. So from the blood, there's actually four basic components, which is plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Okay, in my next slide, I'll be talking about the plasma. Alright, the plasma is basically a liquid component. It's basically the blood's liquid component. It has a yellowish hue and primarily consists of water, salts, and proteins, and then carbohydrates and hormones. It delivers nutrients and water towards the tissues in your body. About 55% of the human blood is made out of plasma, while the 45% is made up of suspended red and white blood cells and platelets. Water makes up 92% of plasma, and then furthermore, it has 1% of mineral salts and all of that. Next, the red blood cells. Red blood cells basically is known as erythrocytes. Red blood cells are basically known for delivering and accepting oxygen and carbon dioxide. They transport oxygen into the cells and carbon dioxide out of the cells. Furthermore, they are actually shaped in a biconcave disc, and they are very flexible. Why biconcave is because to allow a wider surface area for more oxygen to be actually transported into the hemoglobin that is located in the red blood cell. And then why it's flexible, because the biconcave disc of this mature red blood cells needs to be able to go in through tight capillaries and all that in the human body. Furthermore, they lack a nucleus and organelles, so they have the maximum space for hemoglobin. And then the red blood cells are made out of your bone marrow. Basically, they grow in your bone marrow, and then your bone marrow creates almost all of the cells necessary in your body. Red blood cells contain a certain protein called hemoglobin, which is responsible for carrying oxygen and transporting carbon dioxide out of your body. Furthermore, okay, the functionality of red blood cells. Red blood cells basically have three main functions, which is transportation, regulation, and also explanation, regulating basically. So first one, transportation. They actually transport oxygen and carbon dioxide, basically from the lungs towards the body cells, and then from the body cells back to the lungs. Next, the red blood cell also used to expel cellular waste such as urea, uric acid, creatine, and carbon dioxide. Furthermore, the red blood cells actually function as a temperature and pH regulator for the body, maintaining internal homeostasis, where it keeps the body temperature and pH regulated. After this, we'll be talking about hemoglobin, the thing that is inside the red blood cell. Alright, in the red blood cell, there's actually hemoglobin, and hemoglobin is made up of 4 polypeptide chains, 2 alpha and 2 beta chains. These chains are actually interlinked with each other, and they have 4 Fe ions binded to them, each one ion to one chain, and each ion allows the binding of one oxygen molecule to the ion itself. So basically, the hemoglobin for one red blood cell can actually carry 4 oxygen molecules and then 4 CO2 molecules. Okay, alright. From here, then there's erythropoiesis. This is basically the the structure on how the red blood cells actually mature and actually develop from the bone marrow. Basically, it's from proerythroblast to erythroblast to reticulocyte to erythrocyte. So it keeps on maturing to a point where it becomes an immature red blood cell, and from there it matures, and it has its signature biconcavely shape. Next, we'll be talking about white blood cells. White blood cells is basically a portion of the human blood, and each of these white blood cells have a specific purpose. The white blood cell actually goes into two groups, which is agranulocyte and granulocyte. From here, this these variations will come into play later on. From here, in this slide, we can actually see what is agranulocyte versus granulocyte. Granulocytes is basically white blood cells that have granules in them. There are small tiny dots that is in them, which actually makes it easier to differentiate them from the agranulocytes. Agranulocytes, the usage of agranulocytes is basically known as the white blood cells without granules, and they are actually lymphocytes and monocytes. Granulocyte, on the other hand, is an immune cell kind that contains enzyme-filled granules, small particles that release during infections, allergic responses, and asthma attacks, and so on and so forth. So one of the varieties of the granulocytes are as follows: neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, and granulocytes. So they have these three main types for granulocytes. Okay, and then the process for actually getting the granulocytes is called leukopiosis. It's something like erythropoiesis. It's actually coming from the same process. It's just that the the hemocytoblast actually matures into something different. So basically, from here in the diagram, we can see how it actually matures and so on and so forth. It's actually a long process, but there is differentiation of the white blood cells in the middle. Alright. Then lastly, platelets. Platelets are basically small colorless cells and fragments in the body to actually help in blood clotting or stopping or preventing bleeding. So from here, the platelets are made up in the bone marrow, same as the white blood cells and red blood cells. The platelets okay, yes. Furthermore, the platelets regulate in blood clotting, which makes it vital for battling cancer and chronic diseases and whatnot. Patients that are given donor platelets actually have blood transfusion, so basically, if they cannot produce they cannot produce levels of platelets on their own, they actually get blood transfusions and whatnot. So a higher blood platelet count in the patient actually lowers the possibility of a harmful or even fatal bleeding, because more platelets allows faster blood clotting, which allows less bleeding. Alright, the formation of platelets is actually called thrombopoiesis. The same concept with erythropoiesis and leukopoiesis. Basically, the megakaryocytes will then which are actually progenitor cells, they will actually discharge platelets into the bloodstream, because the megakaryocytes will actually explode at the moment they enter the capillary, because they are too huge and they will actually rupture. So from there, yeah, that's about it. Thank you.